Okay, so working retail isn't only about customer service, there's more to it. Like yes, you have to keep a friendly attitude and smile to rude customers, but everyday losses in merchandise happen, especially in retail. So today, I want to explain to you the 3 types of losses that happen in retail, and then a few ways to prevent them from happening. So the 3 types of losses are internal, external, and operational. So the first one I'm going to tell you about is external. So external theft would be this one over here, and it's when someone shoplifts or like robs the store or any kind of like outside source. And then in an article, Shrink Your Holiday Shrink, written by Nancy Tinker, states that 32% here is of losses caused by external. So there was an incident where there's these 2 guys just like walking around the store, and then one starts like looking at some shirts and starts asking questions, while some other guy just like heads for the door. And then you hear like alarms just like going off. All of a sudden you see like the managers running, and the guy ended up like taking out of the store a $180 jacket, but they were able to retrieve it, and I guess the other guy was just like for a distraction. But there's other times where it's not as fortunate and you do lose the items. There's like plenty of times where there's like soft sensors that are hidden under tables, behind mirrors. There's like empty fragrance boxes just hidden under clothes. And then another type of loss that happens is internal, and internal is this one. And it's where an employee does the stealing. And so Nancy Tinker states that employee theft is like the highest cause of loss in retail at 47%. In an article, Internal Fraud and Retail Environment says that refund fraud thrives in a system that allows refunds to be processed without complete customer information and or a receipt. The most common method is for the employee to like take an item off the sales floor and return it. And so they'll just be getting money back for like a shirt they didn't have because they didn't need like the receipt or something, or they don't put all of the information. And so this actually happened in my store. One of the managers would go to like the same store in a different location. She would buy an item, she'd go to our store, and since she was a manager, she'd like return it herself, keep the shirt, and get her money back. And then she was also like changing the times on her card so it looked like she was there longer than she actually was, and so she'd be getting back like more money. And then there's another time where like a manager was stealing cash out of the register when they were closing, and then eventually started getting more ballsy and started taking larger amounts of money and was eventually caught. And so the last type of loss is operational. And operational is usually like a mistake. You'll be scanning something and you don't scan everything, or there'll be like, you'll mess up on like counting inventory. There'll be something wrong with like the shipment. And so the article by Tinker says that 14% of loss is operational. And so operational shrink is profit loss caused during normal operations, usually due to a breakdown in controls and best practices. Participants indicated that store shrink results from the behaviors of store personnel and their failure to use store operations controlled best practices consistently, which was stated in sources of shrink loss. And then the last thing I want to talk about are a few ways to prevent these from happening. So the first way to like prevent external theft would be to like keep an eye on like customers that are acting like really nervous, or they're avoiding eye contact, or if they're just like lingering around the store, kind of like hiding in areas where they're like hard to be seen. And then another thing is just to help is just like keep the store like really neat and orderly. Already have an idea of where like most of the theft happens, so you can keep like an extra eye on there. And then if it's like clothing, like have a limit to how many items they can take into a fitting room. That way, like if they walk in with 5 and then they come out with 3 and the other 2 items aren't in there, like you can casually like bring it up like, oh, how did those other items work out for you? And like take it to the register or something. And then a way to prevent internal is just to like have a watchful eye. Maybe have like surprise inspections on like inventory, register checks. And another way is just to like inform your employees about theft and encourage them to like send in anonymous tips if they suspect that someone is stealing or they know someone is stealing. And then a lot of the time, like if someone is stealing, the person who like sent in the tip usually gets a reward. And then a few other things is like before leaving the store, like make sure like everybody's bags are checked so that no one's like taking any items. And then to prevent operational loss is just to be very like cautious on what you're doing. If you're ringing up items, like make sure that you're scanning every single item. Or when you're changing like the marketing, make sure that everything's correct and all the promotions are in the right spots. Like here, something was marked down, but it was supposed to be a higher price. And so those are the 3 types of losses that happen: internal, which is employee theft; external, which is just shoplifting; and operational, which is usually a mistake. And then these are the ways that you can prevent it. Just be very aware of your surroundings.
All right, Matthew, what did you think?
I thought your intro was alright. I think maybe just a better attention getter would have been to, get us into the topic more. That would have been cool. Your visuals were good. It's unique. Everyone's using a presentation, but you had a poster. But then like the words on it were kind of small, so like it was kind of hard to see. That was kind of the only thing about it. I like how you did personal experience. A lot of us, I'm sure, work retail. A lot of us understand and can relate to it, kind of thing. And I like how you told us about prevention too, because a lot of times people would just tell us, oh, like this is what happens. That's it. It sucks. And then also, it was good. You did a preview and you summarized it also. And
Okay. I thought the attention device was fine. You make a reference to your own experience working in retail and talking about things that you might have encountered. The goal is labeled very clearly for the speech, so I thought that was fine. I don't remember that was a topic that we signed up on. Is that one of them?
You said it was too broad, so
Okay.
just narrowed it down.
Okay, good. Okay. I think you could probably do a little bit more in justifying it for the audience. For instance, why is it that we ought to be listening to this? Unless we own a store, people go, well, why should we care about this kind of stuff? And there are consequences, how significant, how important it is, how much money gets lost, that kind of thing. I think you could make that a little bit more significant for the audience at the beginning. There's a solid setup of this the supporting structure because you've got the visual that goes along with it. Although I do think you want to make sure that you mention that loss prevention is going to be part of the speech as well. I only heard one source citation, and I know you've got some personal experience that you're using there. A couple of the stories that you tell, I'm not sure why they are the stories that you, I mean, the story about the two guys who were doing the distraction theft sounds, I'm sorry, it sounds boring the way you've described it. And I'm sure there's a reason that if it's one that happened in your store, that's the way you need to talk about it. Here's something that happened in our store last week. A guy came in and he's distracting the manager. Well, his buddy is loading up a $180 jacket and running out the door, and the alarms go off. So you tell it like it's a story. You know, you make it sound like you're describing a video that you saw on a news program, and there are hundreds of those kinds of things that happen all the time. Why is this one interesting, unique? Why is this the one that you're talking about? The fact that it's something that happened in your store would explain that kind of thing. So you need to kind of, you know, dance it up a little bit, make it a little bit more interesting. It's, you know, I understand what you're talking about. There are a lot of these different kinds of techniques. That would be one of the things that you could find out in the research. What kinds of other things do they use? The distraction techniques, you know, that sort of thing. The shoplifting techniques that people have. You mentioned at the end, people, you know, trying on clothes and wearing clothes underneath and that kind of thing. I think you could maybe do a little bit more in talking about what goes on when we're talking about the external kind of theft that goes on. Because you did a lot more of that on the internal theft, where talk about the different kinds of things that happen. You've got a couple of examples that you illustrate there. I'd have to agree with Matthew about especially the pie chart. It's so small you can't even see what's going on in the middle. That might have been something to put on a second poster board and maybe make cross references to, and that would have been fine. The poster board was fine. I like the cartoony images. They're fun to look at. It organizes your speech so we know what the sections are, that kind of thing. You know, it's pretty simple, although you're doing a lot with the one poster board because you use it in each section. Normally I would suggest, for instance, maybe covering up the sections that you're not referring to at that time. That's a little complicated to do unless you had it on 3 different poster boards, for instance, which would have required an investment of more money. You know, you'd have to buy more poster boards, but you wouldn't have had to draw anymore. Did you do the drawings yourself?
No, someone else did it for me.
Because they did, you know, they were cute. They were cute, and illustrated the concept pretty well. Your delivery is, I think, a little bit nervous. It comes across very dry. I think you need to be a little bit more invested in what you're doing when you're talking about this. All right. Thank you.